Hello, Bible readers. I don't just have enemies that make life difficult. They're not just annoying or disagree with me or at odds with my values. They're monsters. I mean, if you're the psalmist calling on God to do something dramatic, to change everything for you, do you try to grab God's attention with your run-of-the-mill enemy? Or do you call them lions that greedily devour human prey? Their teeth are spears and arrows, their tongues sharp swords. Walter Brueggemann, in his little book, Praying the Psalms, says Psalms are powerful expressions of the experience of disorientation. And that word disorientation, it's a little more antiseptic, a little more clinical than what it's really getting at. Moments of disorientation in life are the moments that cause pain, anger, grief, despair. You could name, the death of loved ones, the loss of a job, a divorce, an addiction, the most terrible things of life that turn our lives upside down, right? Disorientation. You go from orientation to disorientation. So to say Psalms are powerful expressions of the experience of disorientation. It sounds like clinical, but these are the hardest moments of life. And so Brueggemann goes on to say Psalms express the pain, the grief, the dismay, the anger that life isn't good. They also, at the same time, in doing that work, in admitting that life isn't good in the moment of disorientation, they also refuse to settle for things as they are. And so in what they do and how they do it, they assert hope. One of the things to notice is that these psalms, these complaint psalms, engage in enormous hyperbole. Thus, I lie in the midst of lions, for example. Brueggemann's point is, this is not descriptive language. Nobody is pretending that this psalmist is describing an experience of being among lions. It's trying to evoke God to action. Hey, God, notice. He goes on to say, we know that at the time of death, the healthy grief process requires many tears, many words, many embraces, many retellings of the grief. This is true for every extreme experience and dislocation. This is grief work, and we are invited to join in it as we read a psalm. Now, some people might think a grieving person, and I have heard people at times complain about being a grieving person or having to be around grieving people. Some people might think that this kind of grief that Brueggemann talks about, the kind that has to retell the story and take on lots of embracing and lots of words, that with all these words and hugs and stories and more words, that it's all just a way to rehash the past. They're just living in their past. But Brueggemann cites a couple famous psychologists who would say that by grieving like this, in a healthy way, they would contend, they are actually making themselves and their brokenheartedness fully known so that, not that that's the end goal, but they're doing that work so that they could move into a new orientation, new life, from disorientation to orientation, from the old life the way it was to newness of life the way it can be. So in fact, these lament psalms are acts of hope. Brueggemann says, thus the complaint psalms do their work of helping people to die completely to the old situation, to die completely to the old possibility, the old false hopes, the old lines of defense, and pretending to say as dramatically as possible that all that is over now. And what is it replaced with? Well, in Psalm 57, with this call to God, be exalted, O God, above the heavens. That's what it's replaced with. It's replaced, all the pretending is replaced with, be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. That refrain of Psalm 57 isn't just a religious thing for ancient people to pray during worship or something like, oh, got to say something. What do we say to God? It is the final word a person who has experienced disorientation, it's the final word they are left with. It's the final word they can muster, having exhausted all other ideas to try to control their circumstances or make sense of their circumstances. You know, as we tell ourselves those things that are supposed to make ourselves feel better, well, as awful as this is, it must all be part of God's plan, as though there has to be a plan. Or, well, God never gives us more than we can handle, except I can't handle this. So all the little things we do and say to pretend we're fine, we're strong enough to do life and everything in it ourselves. The psalmist comes to God and admits, again in Psalm 57, that's all a lie. It's obviously empty. These people are lions. I'm all but dead. So I cry to my God, be merciful to me, O God. Be exalted, O God, here on earth. The steadfast love of God is all the psalmist has left, and that happens to always be true. We just notice its truth and believe that truth more readily when we're disoriented, when we're in grief, when we're experiencing the truth that we're not actually in control. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.